Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to start our program in about another minute and a half, 2 minutes here as we let people drift into the room. My name is Daniel Schoonmaker, the executive of the Sustainable Business Forum, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion today. Again, we're going to start the program at approximately 1.5 to 2 minutes here. All right, looks like that's our crowd today. Hello, my name is Daniel Schoonmaker again. I am the Executive Director of the Michigan Sustainable Business Forum, and I'm pleased to welcome you to today's presentation of the Michigan Sustainable Business Forum webinar series. For those that are not familiar with our organization, the forum is a collaboration of businesses and institutions working to promote practices and policies that advance climate leadership, social justice, and the creation of a circular economy. We host events and programs throughout the state, including this monthly webinar series. This series and many of our other programs are sponsored by Schupan and Foresight Management, with additional support from our members and folks like you. Before diving into today's programs, I want to highlight a couple of events we have coming up. First, on October 28th, the forum will be celebrating 30 years as an organization. First is the West Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. And if those are paying attention, I almost said that at the beginning of our webinar today. This will be our annual Triple Bottom Line Bash in Grand Rapids. Tickets are still available for approximately 27 hours. So please hurry and get those and join us and celebrate sustainable business and sustainability in the state alongside your peers. Then on December 10, we're going to have our next webinar, Climate Change and Infectious Disease, How Growing Public Health Threats Will Impact Business. This is going to be featuring Bill Gurn, formerly of Hayworth, and the Michigan Recycling Coalition Board, who I imagine many of the people on the call today are familiar with, looking to talk about how his experience is a good learning lesson for what we might expect as climate change is going to make new diseases, more prevalent diseases, concern for our workforces and economy. Please check out the link to that and RSV for the program on December 10th. Looking forward to a great discussion there. Now I'd like to kick off our program for today, From Waste to Wealth, Insights from Michigan's 2024 Municipal Solid Waste Study. I am actually the main speaker today, so I'm excited for that. For attendees, please note that you can share thoughts and questions with the panelists or all attendees through the chat function. We will have time at the end of the presentation for open questions and answers, and looking forward to a great discussion here. First, I'd like to start by introducing our speakers today. Again, I'm Daniel Schoonmaker. I'm Executive Director of Municipal Business Forum. Oh, along with me is Dr. Christopher Cruz, a Assistant Professor of Economics at Grand Valley State University, and Carrie Veldman, our Operations Manager for Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. We used to be called membership manager, and she made this slide, so I'm going to blame that on her. Carrie was recently promoted. For those who have been with us for a while, if you have the opportunity to attend the Michigan Coalition conference earlier or are participating in any of our working groups, you will have likely seen a version of this presentation. And just as a note, the information that we're going to talk about is available in a report that has been public for a few months now, and we'll be sharing the link to that if you haven't found it yet shortly. So as an initial introduction, our organization has three strategic focus areas. One is which to support the creation of a circular and low carbon economy in Michigan. It's our belief that Michigan and businesses and institutions should collaborate to create a circular economy and eliminate net greenhouse gas emissions in their local economies and industries. And it's our hope that through that, we're going to contribute to a future where greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere are declining, and Michigan is a center of expertise for sustainable business. And these efforts of ours, though not directly aligned with the My Health Climate Plan, are complementary, and we believe act in support of that effort. So before I go on, I'm not gonna bury the lead here. My hope is that if you walk away with one number, that number is $8 billion. So that's the key takeaway I'm hoping everyone to have, so that in the time period in which we're going to see the majority of the My Healthy Climate Plan, or just in general, the state's investments in climate solutions happen over the next decade, Michigan is going to dispose of $6.2 billion to $8.3 billion of marketable material through just its municipal solid waste stream by 2035. It's going to which we believe reinforces the need to prioritize recycling and composting as part of that My Health Climate Plan. And that is an annual value of $500 million on the low side to 666 million. And Chris may have this later in the line. I'm going to talk about the market impacts. So you don't have to interrupt and correct me now, because there is a possibility that will move closer to the floor than the ceiling. And that will have an economic impact of 3,317 to 4,490 jobs, and $610 million to $825 million in total economic impact. So if you drop off, or your net goes off, or you just got to take off, let this be your takeaway. If we don't do what we need to do to increase our infrastructure and make practices change in our state, we're throwing away $500 million every year, and that's going to add up to $8 billion over the course of the next decade. So this project is a second iteration of something that we did back in 2015 and 2016, working with what was then the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality to sample material coming from the state's landfills and waste energy facilities, and determine what was in there. This time colloquially known as the Trash Research Project, and that was in support of what that time was the Snyder administration's goal to double the recycling rates. And again, the form sample material, we found at that time that Michigan was disposing of $368 million of material, and by doing so, sacrificing around 2,600 jobs. And that report, which is going on 10 years old now, was a basis for a lot of dialogue and a lot of initiatives and outcomes, including what became the Kent County Sustainable Business Park project. Over the past year, we've been taking some of the thoughts that came out of our work to dig into what's in the landfill, and developing the strategic platform for our organization, which we're calling creating a decarbonized and circular economy. And this is actually the second of a series of research efforts that we've done in partnership with the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes Energy. The first one, which we released late last year, I've been talking about the majority of this year, is the Michigan Food Waste Roadmap, which is planned to reduce food loss and waste in Michigan by 50%. We're going to talk about food waste a little bit today, as that is one of the largest findings from our MSW report, effort in 2016, and our one again this past year, and that is the largest waste material that we are currently sending to our landfills in one waste energy facility. The second is the one we're going to talk about today, our economic impact, economic impact potential of MSW. And then later this year, early next year, we'll be releasing a addendum to this effort, looking at the potential climate emissions reduction potential from the activities we're talking about today. And before I go on, I want to highlight that all three of those efforts and much of our work is funded generously from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes Energy. Thank you, Eagle, and anyone from the Eagle team online today. We appreciate your partnership, and know for everyone on that this work is made possible by Eagle support through the Renew Michigan Fund and other efforts, as well as support from other organizations. And as we indicated, this project required access and support from materials management stakeholders and facilities operators. And without them giving access to their facility, especially waste management or public services, Kent County Public Works, and the Marquette County, this wouldn't be possible. And we're very grateful for the access and the support you provided us through this effort. So this year we had the opportunity to come back and take a look again at our 2016 study. When we looked at it initially, the goal was to double the recycling rates, and since then we have a new administration and we have a goal that's set a little higher. Many people on this call likely know that we are currently working to support an increase in recycling rates of 45% over the next decade. And our 2023 and 2024 for our municipal solid waste characterization valuation study, the actual samples were done during the 2023 calendar year, is working in support of that effort. As mentioned, we've done statistically significant waste source and created an economic valuation for diversion in terms of real material value, job creation, other positive economic and environmental effects. Today, we're going to talk about the composition of Michigan municipal solid waste. We're going to compare the composition of Michigan's MSW to that of other Midwest states and peer states across the nation. And we're going to compare the 23 composition to that of 2016. And then finally, we're going to give you that economic analysis and share some other data sets that we are hopeful are going to spur some important discussions around how our materials are managed in the state of Michigan. So here I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Carrie Beltman, who had the awesome task of spending her 2023 summer going into the field and going to landfills and waste energy facilities across the states and seeing what it is we're throwing away.
Hi there. My name is Carrie Veldman again with Michigan Sustainable Business Forum. So I had a team of myself and then 4 fellows, a team of all women. We are the ones that completed the field study. So I'm going to kind of go over our general process. So our process for the day began really before the landfills would even open. Our team would head to the landfill and go through a safety briefing. From there, we would go meet with the person that was working the gate. So this is where all of the trucks come through and get weighed before they go to dump their load at the landfill. So we would talk to the gate and make sure that they knew we could only be accepting commercial and residential loads. And ahead of time, we kind of went to check out how many loads on average is this landfill getting per day. So if they got 80, we would have a random number generator that would tell us that we would take truck 8, 15, 24. And so once we got all of this information to the gate agent, let them know that they would need to give us the truck number, the weight, the origin of where that truck came from. We would have them stay there, get their phone number, and then we would head out to the field. So our space on the field, we would not be on the open face of the landfill. Obviously, this is a very dangerous area, so we were set up somewhere that was not being used at that time while we were waiting for the truck. While we were waiting for the truck, we would then go ahead and get our station all set up. So we had 30 large plastic totes, and this is what we used to sort all of our different waste in to categories. Each of these categories was, of course, broken down much further, but our categories were papers, plastics, organics, metals, and other. We would also go ahead and set up a scale and make sure that that was balanced. And then we would get some tarps laid out for our waste that would be sorted to be laid on. At that point, once we had everything kind of ready to go, we would wait for a text message to come through from the gate, and they would let us know, all right, we've got truck number 8. It's a residential load. It's coming your way. The truck would get sent our way, and we would direct them on where to dump the full load. From there, we had a random, we needed to have like between a 300 and 500 pound sample from each of these loads. And so we would have a front loader take a random sample and dump the entire load onto the tarp. And then this was what we needed to sort through. So we would go ahead and start opening bags, sorting out the different types of papers, plastics. Of course, going through all of these things is going to kind of bring about a lot of discussions. And luckily, we had quite an intelligent team to be able to kind of go through and make decisions in the field that would affect our study down the line. One of the example of a decision that was made was removing newspaper from being a category at all. We had it as a completely separate category, and by the third landfill that we'd been to, we realized that we were getting almost none, if not maybe one newspaper. And so we made the decision in field to move that category into mixed paper. Another example is we created a new category called bio waste. We were getting a lot of items like diapers, cat litter, dog waste bags. And it was kind of a strange in between of, is it organic or inorganic waste? Because it's a bit of a mix of both. And so we made it its own category called other bio waste. So we would kind of continue to just clear off that 300 to 500 pounds of waste until there was nothing left on the tarp. And once we did this, we took all of those bins and weighed every single bin, took down all the data, and then kind of adding any additional information that we thought might be helpful down the road. So we took a lot of photos of bins, made a lot of notes of different things that we were finding. And from there, we would dump the bins out, tear them out and clean them, and prepare for our next load. That slide there is those were our research fellows. Huge shout out to them. They did an amazing job and some incredibly difficult work. And then, yeah, we're just going through. There's our little bit of a view of our setup, some different items that we would see sorted out there. Yeah. I think that turns it over to our data set here, and so we'll turn it back to Dan.
Yeah, and for a question, the Q&A about whether or not the recording will be available, yes, it will be, and you can also currently find the report we are talking about now, as well as all the graphs we're going to show you over the next few minutes, available for download on our website at misbf/MSW. So this is what this looks like. We sampled all the material. We sampled all the material. Worked with Christopher's team at Grand Valley to aggregate that and scale across scale across what that look like across the state, and came up with ranges for what the 95th percentile of that of this will look like. We report out here what the mean percentage by weight is, and this is what we have in our municipal weights. Food waste is 19% of that. Non-food organics is another 18%. Paper products 24, plastic 10, textiles, glass, and metal are all in the single digits. And then we have a category that is essentially a combination of other at 20%. And breaking down by specific categories, we see that food waste is the largest by far category that we have going into our municipal solid waste stream. We did not sort this out by edible or inedible food, as we see is occasionally done in similar studies in other states. That was not something that was a specific scope of this project, but we may take a look at that using desktop data at some point and offer an addendum to this report. I also want to flag corrugated cardboard as a surprisingly large amount of material. That's something that's consistent with 2016 as well, as something that we've generally considered with our membership to be the easiest and most common thing to recycle. Yet it is still such a large part of the waste stream. Here we have those major categories broken down a little further. You see the different the different types of paper, plastic, and organics. The numbers here are the numbers here are against the total MSW, not the percentage of paper, plastic, organics, etc. Of note, when we combine organics together, so food waste and non-food waste items, which would include wood, non-recyclable paper, other bio waste, dog feces, etc., yard trimmings. We find that that's approximately 61% of the municipal solid waste stream, which is meaningful for any discussions in which we're talking about other ways to process organics or process waste other than composting. So if we're looking at what level of material we could say movement to anaerobic to larger scale anaerobic digestion facilities, these numbers would be relevant to those discussions. And then we took a look at what we would call the ease of recycling for materials in Michigan as well. We have what we call conventional recycling, which is curbside drop-off recycling as commonly understood. We also have a category that we call conventional recycling plus. As many facilities are no longer taking certain types of plastic, glass, or certain types of paper, such as cartons. And I say no longer, some of them never did, but glass is something that is being taken less and less in curbside. We thought it important to segregate that out. So in conventional recycling, the way that I have at my home in Grand Rapids, we can recycle around 31.1% material, but in conventional recycling, in the way that is at least universally understood, is around 20%. If we add a number of items that would be available through drop-off facilities, such as electronic recycling, we can move that up to our comprehensive by another 16%. We call recoverable organics is 34%, and then we only have around 19% of the MSW that is currently not recoverable based on standard practices within the state of Michigan. when comparing commercial and residential load, we have some interesting findings. There's two that I pulled out here that were not actually statistically significant, but were close enough to, so they're off by less than 1%, that thought it important to highlight here. And this range was uh, such a large variance, we thought it was important to highlight as well. That's corrugated cardboard and to a lesser extent wood. Corrugated cardboard, again, as I mentioned, is over 10%, over 10% of the waste stream, but is disproportionately found in commercial loads. This is something that we flagged back in 2016. We flag again. It's something that the state should be looking to invest to invest in intentionally. And from my understanding, that people are beginning to listen to that, and there's some efforts that are likely to come out of the next cycle program the next year that do unpack that to a certain degree. This is actually something a little bit of a surprise to us, given the increase in e-commerce over the past decade since we did the 2016 one. We thought there'd be more boxes, but we didn't really see a comparable amount of that come from residential loads. But a large part of that is that there is such a considerable amount of food waste that is coming out of residential. If you look down the chart there, you see food waste is substantially more common in residential loads than it is in commercial loads. This kind of makes sense. We eat a couple more meals at home than we eat at the workplace. This would obviously be different if you were talking about a restaurant or a coffee house or even a movie theater, which is some of the locations where we know we were pulling bags from. But in aggregates, residential is much more, and to a statistically significant degree. What is also more common in commercial loads? Primarily, we think because of C&D and construction. Those are the type of things we're seeing. And again, we see C&D as a separate call up there as well. And then on the residential side, again, some of the things we would consider more consumer items, like plastic, number one, both in bottles and containers, UDC plastic, which is unclaimed deposit containers, and glass, more common in residential than they were in commercial loads. When we compare this to 2016, there were two areas in which we were definitely performing better from a statistically significant standpoint, and a few areas in which we were doing a little worse as far as the percentage of material that's going to the landfill. Again, because I highlighted this earlier, when we talk about statistical significance, when we pull out the data sets, we create a range. So what we're reporting here is the mean of that range. But what's in the report, particularly on the data, if we say 8.9 is the mean, it's actually a range of, I don't have the exact number in front of me, of say 5 to 10. And if in 2016, if the range was instead of 5 to 10, if it was 11 to 20, then we would consider statistically significant, because the high and the lows don't overlap at any points. We found that to be the case with these specific materials, as the one as the former slide. So mixed paper and total plastic, those are ones where statistically significant. So even beyond the eyeball, we can kind of say very confidently that we have less of that as a proportion of tons in MSW now than we did 10 years ago. And I think that could be make some case that our conventional recycling programs are performing as intended. On the flip side, there's some areas in which we are seeing a statistically significant increase. Plastic bags is one, which is less easy to recycle in our state. Is not commonly accepted in conventional recycling, even though you can take it back to retail locations and other places. Expanded polystyrene foam is another one that is not commonly accepted, even though it is possible to recycle through drop-offs. And of course, food waste. And I think we'll see this talk about in a moment. We can expect that as our recycling programs perform better, without other interventions, food waste is going to become a larger portion of MSW. And then finally, we'll talk about this a little more. Unclaimed deposit containers. So beverage containers carrying the 10-cent bounty, or the bottle bill containers. There was a substantial increase in that, and we'll have a slide about that a little bit later here. When we compare our MSW to other Midwest states, and note that we did this in the report in two ways. We have comparison of ones that were done pre-COVID, which is when the majority of recent MSW studies were performed, and then we had one post-COVID. Our understanding is that we would expect that there would be a significant shift in things like e-commerce that would have happened post-2020. And to a certain degree, we did that, though it was not as significant as the difference we saw in 2016 in the use of things like paper and newspaper that occurred between 2016 and, say, 2006. And here, when we look at this, except for plastic, which some of those differences are a little artificial in the way that we classify certain materials versus the way the other states have. Beyond that, most of the Midwest states are kind of tracking along with Michigan with some minor variations. One thing I'll flag, and kind of looking at the next slide here, is California. So California MSW represents what we think Michigan MSW will most likely look at when it achieves its 45% recycling rate. It's the best performing state in the union. It's right around that for its recycling rates. And what we see when we look at it on the other side is that most MSW is difficult to recycle material with considerably more other inorganics than other states. So the stuff that you just can't recycle. There's less paper products than any other states because paper is the easiest thing to recycle. And it's one of only two studies reviewed where compostable paper is the most common paper material. So the only thing that they can't recycle is the thing that's commonly going to MSW. The other one is Minnesota, and it's another state with a comparatively high recycling rates. Food waste in California MSW is approximately half that of Michigan MSW because they banned that fairly recently. So we would expect to have a lot less of that. So then we did a value of this, and this is what we came up with. So the total value of Michigan MSW material disposed, as I mentioned earlier, is in the $500 million range. Notice that though plastic was only 10% of the composition of the material, it is substantially more of the value, $259 million. Paper is around 160 million, metal is 183. Glass isn't worth quite as much, and in fact, we label glass in many cases is zero value because most of the recyclers working through curbside or drop-off streams are actually paying people to process material. However, source separated glass through the bottle bill system actually does retain quite a bit of market value. Textiles are another economic opportunity, and we're able to find a value for organics based on what the market value is for composting after it becomes a finished product. So how do we do this? So the basic idea is that change the rate of recycling in Michigan is going to have economic effects, including changes in recycling markets and municipal budgets. So if we do this, it's good things are going to happen, but there are also costs associated with it. What we did is we asked recyclers in our network, what will the market pay for a ton of the material in Michigan when processed through conventional recycling comparable process, such as composting or in the case of textiles, the various secondary markets available for used clothing. And this open with using rolling averages over the year period of the study was what we came up with on this next slide. And on the right side, you'll see that this is the table that's found in the report that, oops, sorry, no, that's the available weight by material on the next on the right side of the report. In the report itself, we have two graphs. This is the one for more than $100 per ton, and we have one a comparable slide that shows it for material that's less than $100 a ton, which is kind of our cutoff. You'll see HDPE bottles and non-ferrous metal are by far and away the most valuable material currently going to MSW. If you're not familiar, non-ferrous metal is in our case almost entirely aluminum. I don't know if we actually found any tin or copper. I'm sure we didn't find very much gold or silver or anything like that. So when we talk about non-ferrous metal, but for the vast majority of that, we're just saying aluminum, and that's the basis price we're using. Then just as a note, if you want to get into finer details, just about every non-ferrous metal is worth more than aluminum. So that's if there was a material amount of non-ferrous metal beyond aluminum there, we would be underestimating that value as well. This is an erroneously doubled slide, so we can just skip past that, Terry, if you don't mind. My bad. And we break that down, break this down by specific commodities. Again, we see non-ferrous metal comes out to $130 million, despite being only about 1% of the materials currently going to landfill. HCP bottles also being in the low single digits, they're worth over $100 million. Rounding out a few plastic categories as well. And we'll mention bags, wraps, and film in a moment, because though it has a very high value, there are some caveats to that. And the next slide I'll show you here is how one way to think about this as well. So there are a number of materials that have a very high value, like PET plastics and non-ferrous metal, but there's not really very much of it in our municipal solid waste. But there are a few materials that are worth a lot, and there is a lot of them. So again, corrugated cardboard. So this is a material that has a fairly high value, and there's a lot of it. So if you want to think about specific interventions, those might be some of the materials you want to be thinking about. Compare that, say, in contrast to food waste, which has about an average value in total of around $30 million. And there's also just like a ton of it out there in comparison to just about anything else. But then not even on this page, you're going to see things like non-ferrous metals, HDPE, which have an enormous value, and we should be thinking about that. But there's not a great deal of it in MSW for us to be capturing in comparison to everything else. So what's this all mean? Again, back to our key takeaway. $8 billion over the next 10 years. Again, we add this all up. Michigan's to dispose of $6.2 billion to $8.3 billion of marketable material. When we say marketable material, that's what if we were to pull it out, we could sell it for right now. Now, as a note, and again, this is broken down to $500 million to $607 million per year. If we were to pull all this material out, that would have a likely impact on the market. We do estimate that the actual value, if we were to do this, would likely lower the price of it, and we'd probably be seeing more of a $432 to $506 million range. But using those numbers, as I said, around 4,000 jobs, and a 610 to $825 million economic value. And before they ask the question, if you say, hey, 666 times 10 is not 8.3 billion, we are estimating that Michigan's population is going to increase, and the amount of MSW is going to continue to increase because it has the last 10 years, and it has every year since I've been alive. Maybe that'll change, but if we keep on the current track, we are not going to be disposing of $606 million next year or the year after, because we're going to keep disposing of more waste each year until we do things a little differently. So wrapping these up, some findings of note I want to highlight as we move into our Q&A period here. Corrugated cardboard is a specific and meaningful opportunity that we should be looking at across the state, especially for the commercial waste streams. Electronic waste and lithium-ion batteries are a point of concern. Those who are in the industry can talk about the potential public safety, environmental concerns related to this activity. I think had a meeting with City Grand Rapids yesterday, and they said they lost a truck this year. And I think most people in the industry can talk about how they've lost a truck, or they lost a facility, or had something catch fire because of lithium-ion battery. One thing we'll note is an area where these things could be coming, they're not really thinking too much of, is there is an astounding amount of vape pens in Michigan's MSW. And I can say we had no idea until we started going through people's trash and seeing how much of this stuff there was just everywhere. And we estimate that there is nearly $30 million of vape pens in Michigan's MSW. Candidly, this is not an activity I'm very familiar with. I was surprised to find out that these things were even disposable. But we're finding a lot of it, and it's by far the most common type of electronic waste we're coming across. 59% of municipal solid waste are single-use products. The vast majority of there is low-value materials. So one thing to keep in mind is that source reduction is something that should be part of this conversation. And if we keep using products that are single-use and don't have a strong recycling marketability, that is going to just create further strain on materials management practices, and we are never going to be able to recycle our way out of an ever increasing use of low value material. On that note, operational costs can prevent recovery of certain materials at scale. So plastic bags, by the numbers we're hearing from people and the amount of that's in the waste stream, you would think that'd be a sizable economic opportunity. But material recycling facilities don't really want to take that because they clog up the material and creates all kinds of operational concerns. So as such, that may not be as great of opportunity as what the data might suggest due to the operational nature of it. And when we talk about things that are, again, as we looked at over $100 a ton, so what we would consider high value of Michigan municipal solid waste, that's only around 17% of the waste stream. So if we're really looking to try to go out to things that we're going to get a lot of bang for our buck, that's a lesser portion of our waste stream than things that are low value, and we're just hopeful to break even, and the higher possibility that those high value materials are going to subsidize the recycling and waste diversion of these other materials. Turn the corner on my last slide here before I move into Q&A. Unclaimed deposit containers. I think this is something that is a lingering COVID impact, and something that, given the increase in the amount of unclaimed deposits that we're seeing from the Department of Treasury, we were expecting there to be an increase, and indeed there was a substantial and statistically significant increase in claimed bottle bill containers. There are an estimated 1.3 billion unclaimed containers in the municipal waste stream. And this was 3 times more than what there was in 2016. But also in 2016, we found that there was an unexplained variance between what was reported in the unclaimed bottle deposits and what we were finding in our sampling, beyond what would be explained by the margin of error. And this variance was consistent with what we found in this report. And prior studies have suggested that retail fraud is somewhat common in Michigan and had estimated this to be around $10 million. We would say that our data suggests that provides some support for that. Can't necessarily prove that, but that does equal out to the number that our variance would have been between what we'd expect to find and what we actually did find in both 2016 and 2024. With that, we have some time for questions. Carrie's here to talk about anything you might want to know on actual field work, and Christopher is here to talk about how we did the scientific evaluation of our materials and worked with our recyclers to put those numbers together. And we have a quick, was there any sampling done for landfills in Iowa County? No, there was not. There's only one landfill actually in Iowa County, to my understanding, and they actually don't the pitch landfill. They actually don't take a significant amount of municipal solid waste, but we could create a. I think we have a reasonable idea of what material would be coming from Ionia if we take the what we would have received from Kent County, where substantial amount of the material is going to go. But for any county or specific site, we didn't do enough samples to say that it would be statistically significant for any specific region or facility. Though with that said, we are planning on over the next several months putting out some material in which we do take the statewide data and apply that down to the county scale, noting that would be estimates based on state findings, but not necessarily representative of those regions. Let's see, what questions do we have here?
I can hop in on one of the questions that was asked. Karen O'Brien had asked about the photo that showed a bunch of light fixtures and how we accounted for this type of material. So all of our electronics, we wrote down what they were when we found them in the field and also took photos of them. And then we met up with a couple of electronic recyclers across the state to kind of show them our list, show them some photos so that we could get some estimates on valuation in this area. So we really did go kind of case by case and item by item to get a really good snapshot of the value of our electronics that are in our landfills right now.
Yeah, and to elaborate on that, most durables are would be found in our other inorganics category. The electronics we pulled out, certain bulky plastics and C&D would be pulled out. And the way that we put together our characterization is based on what is currently recyclable. Recycling is currently electronic waste is currently recyclable if brought to an appropriate facility. And I don't think we actually found any white goods. If we found any white goods, those would have been included in so appliances, those would have been included in electronic recycling as well. And to elaborate on the economic value part of those, the value we have for electronic recycling is basically nothing. And when we had conversations with the electronic recyclers. We brought the list of what we had. It's like, what are you going to do with a bunch of wires and vape pens? And this, so if, some of this stuff we would take and we would process, some we would not. And we want to acknowledge that electronic recycling is valuable, and it has valuable materials in it. It has gold in it. But the types of things we would think of it as valuable were not the types of things we were finding. So there weren't a lot of plasma screen TVs coming out of the MSW. There was lots of vape pens, lots of, what were those things that you show, the light fixtures?
A lot of the stuff that we found that was electronic seemed quite old. I thought we'd find more iPhones or that type of thing, but I think maybe we found one.
Yeah, and I think that, and this is consistent with 2016, is the impression is that people are kind of trained to assume that there is value on that. They're going to keep putting in places other than the trash until likely it ends up being processed by Goodwill or something. Doing scan here. Someone wants to confirm that EPR would be for vape pens would be a good idea. I would, without knowing much about the vape pen industry, I think that would be something that could have some benefit to how municipal solid waste is managed in our states. And for those who aren't familiar, EPR is extended producer responsibility. And if you're interested in that, keep an eye on the Michigan Recycling Coalition, as they've been doing a great deal of work to advance some of those concepts over the past year. Was there analysis of the cost to recycle the items relative to the potential income from its sale? Yes, there was actually. Christopher did that analysis for us. We didn't bring any slides today, but it is found in what we call the net value section of the report. Christopher, would you like to talk a little bit about that? And you're muted, sir.
I'm sorry, I missed. Can you repeat the question, please?
The net value of recyclables against the cost to recycle them.
Yes, so in terms of the net valuation, we basically look at or gathered information, pricing information from our partners in West Michigan, including PADNOS. We got information from Kent County and a bunch of other institutions. And we basically just multiplied that price by the volume that we estimated from the total waste we gathered for the state. We did not consider national numbers, but what we tried to do is, and this is in response to Cindy Roberts, what we tried to do is to account for the possibility that the price will go down as we increase the supply of these recyclables. So in the report, you will see there are two versions. One is price adjusted, and the other the other version would just be sort of the raw prices. It's not adjusted for elasticity. And basically, we just took into account the value of the tipping fees, and that is the net that you're looking at in the report.
Yeah, and there were two questions on the how we got the monetary values as well, and the monetary values were from recyclers. We have a number of them in our network. Company like I believe we got received information from over a dozen on different materials types. Every prominent materials recycling facility in the state provided us the most current information on a 12-month rolling average. And this was materials recycling facilities like Kent County, like Marquette, like Emmett County.
Emmett County, we had PADNOS too.
Yep, as well as people like PADNOS who are not working directly with curbside or drop off, but working a little bit further down the line. And that's where Chris was able to develop his economic analysis from.
So I just want to comment on that actually, because the valuation is quite contingent on the price. And if you're familiar with this market, the prices can be very volatile. So we had to take into account that volatility. We have to get a reasonable range of low prices and high prices, and that's what we report that's what we use in the report.
Someone says, a company in Northern Indiana claims a very high percent of all collected waste is recycled, 90%. Not familiar with that statistic. That doesn't sound, I think there'd have to be some qualifier for that to be true. Because I think maybe if we're referring to like the amount of recyclables that are recycled, or the amount of recycling that is recycled, if you'd like to clarify that further. See, John asked a question, is there a viable recycling process now available for plastics? Yes, I believe so, with some caveats. There wouldn't be people paying close to $2,000 a ton for HDPE plastic if it wasn't profitable to recycle it. The distinction is that there are some materials like number one, number two plastic that are worth a lot, and there's other materials that are worth essentially nothing. And I think you could also factor in some of the environmental health and extraction concerns that come with petrochemicals in general. But if we're talking about the economic value, which is our scope today, some plastic is easily recyclable and very profitable to do it. Others are more difficult to do so. Are landfills required and encouraged to keep stats and share on their own recycling collections? No, I don't believe so. Landfills are required to report the amount of material that they collect and where it comes from, which is where we derived a lot of our data from, is the reports that go to the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes Energy each fiscal year. And they would, though the report changed a little bit year, they would report it based on MSW, industrial waste, C&D, and then some other categories. And they would do this by its point of origin and its point of receipt. So where the landfill was and where it came from. Okay, am I missing any questions here?
Yeah, I think we have a good question in the Q&A. Justine asked, how do you plan on using this information to motivate potential stakeholders and tapping into this material management, and who are those stakeholders?
Well, we plan on doing a whole lot of programming. I would encourage you to join our email list and become a member of our organization. I'm not sure I can answer that in a minute or less, but I can say our organization is perhaps the best way to answer this right now is that if you are a stakeholder and involved in materials management in your community, I'd encourage you to take advantage of our media kits and use our slides or invite us in to talk, because we'd be happy to work with you. But also keep an eye out for the type of work that our organization, as well as partners like I see Next Cycle on the call today, and overseas on the call today, are doing to promote circularity of materials in our states and to address food loss and waste and other source reduction activities. And I guess the one question I might answer, because that one's sticking out to me, is a reminder what the difference between conventional and comprehensive recycling would be. Conventional, we highlighted that two ways. One is, and I might get this a little off from what the exact wording in the report is, so if it is, go with what we wrote down. Conventional plus includes things like glass, which are commonly recycled but not always recycled. And then comprehensive would include things that are available to recycle in high-performing communities. So think electronic waste, sometimes bulk items like mattresses, expanded polystyrene, so styrofoam, primarily drop-off items that are almost never going to be accepted in your curbside recycling system, but are often available in drop-offs depending on how robust the infrastructure in your community is. With that, I don't want to take up anyone's additional time today. Our contact information is readily available. Please do download the report and check it out at msbf.org/MSW. And if you would like to work with the organization, please don't hesitate to reach out, because we're be delighted to collaborate with you. And if you're interested in climate change and infectious disease, and/or want to hear what's Bill Guerin's story, please sign up for our next webinar in December. I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for your collaboration and partnership, Dr. Cruz, for the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy for sponsoring this project, and for my colleagues Carrie and Tori for their work today. And again, thank you, and hope to have the opportunity to work with you all.